If you're like me and you have pretty pale skin, or you've got little ones that are running around, or you're klutzy in the kitchen, whatever, I have a recipe for you. It is a homemade burn cream, burn balm, burn salve type of a thing. It's really simple to make. It uses herbs and all natural ingredients, and I'm going to teach you how to make it. I'm Kelsey, your best friend on the homestead from roughandtumblefarmhouse.com. Now, full disclosure, in the title of this video, I call it a sunburn cream. It's honestly more of a salve or a balm. We're just keeping it to really basic ingredients. You can absolutely make this in a cream sort of a format, but when you start diving into creams, you're looking at emulsifiers, you're looking at preservatives, you're adding in other stuff that makes it a little more complicated. I wanted this to be really accessible and really easy. So I called it a cream, even though it's more of a balm or a salve. So I'm gonna tell you that right away before you come for me in the comments. Let's dive in right away on how to make this recipe. The first thing we're gonna do is we need to infuse an oil with herbs. The herbs we're gonna use are plantain, calendula, and lavender, and we're just going to use equal parts of each. Now, there are a couple of different ways that you can infuse the oil for this recipe, and that's the first step that we have to do, is get the oils that are in the herbs into the oil that's going to be put into this sort of salve cream recipe. So there are a couple ways you can do it. The first way you can do it, this is my favorite, but takes a little bit longer, is the solar infusion method. So you would put all of your herbs into like a mason jar, fill up the mason jar, give it a good shake, and then you leave it for anywhere between 4 and 6 weeks until when you open it up, the oil should be a really nice kind of green color. It should smell really herby and nice. That's my favorite method because I think it's kind of a slow way to do it. You don't have a risk of burning the herbs like we're going to talk about in a minute here. And it's just, I don't know, it's just kind of a natural, slow way to do it. I like that method best. I think it gets the best results. But if you're in a little bit more of a pinch, like let's say you have a sunburn you want to deal with tonight or something like that, then there's some faster methods you can use too. The next method you can do is doing it on a stove top, and there you really want to be careful because you don't want to get the herbs too hot. So in that method, you have to use a double boiler. So that's just a pot with some water in it, and then you have a heat safe bowl on top, or you may already have a double boiler kind of pot set up. And then you put your herbs in there with the oil and make sure you don't heat them too hot. I can't remember for sure what the temperature is. I'll pop it right here so you know what temperature the oil shouldn't get over that temperature, or then you start to cook the herbs and that's no good. In that method, once you have them in the pot and they're heating up, you want to cook them, well, not cook, but kind of almost like steep like a tea. You can steep the herbs for about 30 minutes and that should get you roughly the same results as doing kind of the solar infusion method. The last method that we're doing is to use a crock pot. So here I just have this little crock pot that I use for kind of beeswax projects and other kind of random crafty things. And into it, I am doing a smaller version of the recipe today. I'm just making it for my family. I'm not making a big batch to hand out or anything. So I'm doing a 1/4 cup of plantain, a 1/4 cup of lavender, and a 1/4 cup of calendula. Now over top of that, I am adding an oil. What oil you use is up to you. I have used extra virgin olive oil in the past. In this case, I had some almond oil that was kind of starting to get close to where it might start turning funky on me, so I wanted to do something with it. So I'm using almond oil. It takes about 1.5 cups of oil for this amount of herbs to cover them well in this little crock pot here. If you are using a bigger crock pot, that might be a little bit problematic because the oil really wouldn't get very high up to cover the herbs very well. So I'd say do this in a smaller crock pot, or do the stove method, or do the solar infusion method if you're just making a little batch like this. Now, another thing to kind of be aware of if you're using the crock pot method is some crock pots get really stinking hot. My one crock pot, even on the keep warm setting, it boils stuff. So double check your crock pot. I would recommend putting some water in there first and letting it run for maybe an hour, and then check the temperature of the water to make sure it's not crazy hot. I tried this with another crock pot and it was over 200 degrees in there. It was so hot the liquid got. So just make sure you're not overheating it. That's really important. Now for this method, I'm just going to kind of let this slow cook, slow steep, so to speak, for a few hours. I think it was about 4 hours that I let this in here. Give it a little stir every once in a while. I did keep mine covered because I really didn't want anything evaporating out. I didn't have a problem with condensation or anything either. Now, one thing that's important to note is you want to make sure you're using dry herbs for this, because fresh herbs are going to have way too much moisture in them, and that is going to cause problems with things going rancid or getting moldy or rotting and stuff, and you don't want that. So you need to use dry herbs so they don't have that moisture content. Okay, now once this is all melted, we need to strain out our herbs, and then you can go ahead and compost those or give them to your chickens or whatever you want to do. We're going to strain that oil out. It might take a couple of times through sort of a fine mesh sieve. You can also use cheesecloth, a few layers of that if you have it, or a butter muslin, something like that also works really great. It is going to get oily, so I recommend like hosing it off outside or rinsing it really well in your sink because you don't want to just throw that in with your wash and then get oily stuff all over your clothes. That's a total nightmare. Been there, done that. After you've strained it out, you are going to have more oil than this particular recipe calls for, but you can always kind of up things a little bit if you want to use it all up. I just cap it and store it on the shelf, and then if I want to make a little more later, I certainly can. Now, once you have strained out the oil, we are going to add to that 40 grams of beeswax. Now, the beeswax that I am using in mine, it is beeswax. It is from my own hives, and I haven't filtered it or cleaned it especially well. So I actually use a little bit extra beeswax because I know there's actually still like some honey and pollen and stuff in there that is going to sort of settle to the bottom, which you'll see here in the video in a little bit. But for you, if you're using nice, clean, good beeswax, you want to use 40 grams. So just add that to the oil until it has melted. And as soon as it is melted, we're going to pull that off the heat. And to this, we're going to add 2 grams of a vitamin E oil. Now, vitamin E oil is helpful because it acts a little bit as a natural preservative. It's going to extend the shelf life of this, and it also is really good for nourishing skin. So vitamin E oil is an optional thing to add in there, but if you happen to have some on hand, or you know you're going to make some other sort of DIY skincare sort of things, then it's a great thing to have on your shelf. We are also going to add to this 1 gram of essential oil. Again, optional if you want. The real power in this is in the herbs, but we are going to add some lavender. It is an anti-inflammatory. It works wonders on the skin. I also like lavender because it is pretty much safe for everybody to use. You don't want to use essential oils with really little babies and kids, but you know, little ones over 2 years old, pregnant women, nursing women, lavender is typically considered safe for everybody to use. So lavender is a nice kind of fallback to add a nice scent to it, and it also has some beneficial properties as well. Then from there, we are going to pour our mixture into some heat-safe containers. I like to use these little mason jars. Are really handy. I think they're like a 4-ounce mason jar. I fill these things with all kinds of stuff. They're great for natural body care stuff. They look really cute. I think they're good for putting honey in and little jams and jellies. I really love these jars. And of course, you can also just use metal tins as another great option. I would steer clear from plastic because if it's too hot and you pour this in plastic, it is going to melt. And also plastic, microplastics and stuff, don't even get me started. So I like to use the metal tins and glass containers for this. Now let this sit out and cool, I'd say for at least 4 to 5 hours, because you don't want to cap it too soon or you might get some condensation in there. And remember, we do not want water or moisture in there. It's going to cause things to get funky. Once it is done, then you can go ahead and put that cap on there and make sure you label your jars. You always think you're going to remember what is in there. You're not going to remember. I never remember. I have so many mystery jars of stuff that smell amazing, and so I just kind of use them wherever because I can't remember what I made in there. You think you're going to be able to know or tell or remember. You're not. Label your jars. This is perfectly shelf stable. You can just leave it on your shelf. You can put it in your fridge if you want to. In terms of it getting melty, like if you're going to bring it to the beach or something, or you're going to have it in your car, it will start to get kind of liquidy. Beeswax melts, I want to say it's around like 145 degrees where that starts to lose its solidity. So if it's going to be really hot somewhere, it will start to get kind of liquidy. So I would recommend keeping it not in like direct hot like Texas sun or something like that. I do have over on the blog more information about the herbs if you're interested in why I chose these particular herbs, and I also list some other ones that can be helpful too when it comes to doing some sort of skin repair and things like that. I'll link that down below in the description box. And then I also have some other DIY natural, really simple, easy to kind of dip your toe in skincare recipes. I'm going to link those. One of these days I'm going to figure out where the videos go. They go somewhere around here. But check those out if you're looking for some more recipes. Otherwise, we'll see you here next week for more from your rough and tumble farmhouse.